Hello, good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. This is where the conversation begins. The Pulse is live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125 and on all our social media handles. We are JoyNews on TV. Coming up, governing NDC expresses disappointment and vows to fight on after the Supreme Court restored Yindam as the Member of Parliament for Pandai, squashing a High Court ruling that had annulled his election.
Party, we are aggrieved by this decision, and therefore we will advise our candidate in the matter regarding the next step to take.
We have details of what transpired at the Apex Courts today. Also coming up, clash of prophecy and science. Prophet Elbernard stakes his career, insisting Agyapong will win the NPP primaries.
In that book, no, specifically what they came about Agyapong, as Agyapong obey then, as far as this prime
in that book, no, one of the chapter talks about Agyapong, the shock to the system, and the flag bearer NPP never expected.
But science disagrees. We'll hear from pollster Musa Dankwa, who maintains that data shows Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is leading the race, and he too is putting his career on the line.
We have done the work. We've interviewed, look, in the last month alone, we interviewed 10,000. Yes. In the previous month, no, at least 2,500 or 3,000. So who did come on? We have spoken to people randomly, and this is the voice of the people. And
we have more here on The Pulse. Also coming up, the GJA issues a 14-day ultimatum to the fire service to release its investigative findings on assault on Class FM journalists or risk being blacklisted.
We are giving the fire service a 14-day ultimatum to act on this request.
We have details as GJA petitions the IGP calling for action against individuals threatening journalists covering the Boko conflict, including JoyNews' Albert Sorry, who have been targeted on social media.
The Ghana Journalists Association is gravely alarmed by death threats, incitement to violence, and imminent attacks against journalists.
Also coming up this afternoon, illegal leaching processing of gold is set to face fresh strict nationwide regulation as EPA management holds a crucial first engagement with dozens of illegal miners at its Takwa regional office. We have more. Plus, we'll tell you how dangerous this practice is to the environment and how popular it has become among illegal miners across the country. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Deaf and Drill Cough Expectorant. Deaf and Drill, breathe easy, feel better. My name is Faustina Safo. Please stay for details. Thanks for choosing us. We are your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Well, this afternoon on The Pulse, we begin from the courts, where the ruling National Democratic Congress has signaled its intention to pursue every available legal option to challenge a Supreme Court verdict that has overturned the Tamale High Court's decision, which annuls the Pandai parliamentary election. In a 4-1 majority ruling delivered today, the Supreme Court affirmed the New Patriotic Party candidate Yindam as the substantive member of Parliament for Pandai. The decision followed an application by Mr. Yindam, who invoked the court's jurisdiction and supervisory action, arguing that the High Court committed a jurisdictional error. The Apex Court upheld the application, setting aside the High Court's ruling and restoring its mandate. However, Justice Gabriel Scott Pamine, who actually presided over the case today in court, dissented Our parliamentary affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante, was in court for us today. He joins me in the studio with more. Kweku, quite a long day it has been for us, and I'm sure our audience as well. But let's start with the antecedent. What exactly happened?
Exactly. In November of last year, Matthew Nyindam had already been declared member of parliament. But the NDC parliamentary candidate went to the High Court and got a judgment. And that judgment was delivered in November of last year. Justice Brew's decision was to the effect that despite having been elected, there were irregularities for which reason that election cannot stand, and proceeded to annul the entirety of that election. We know the scenes that transpired in Parliament, with the minority taking issue with that. In fact, at some point, blocking or vowing to frustrate proceedings until the decision to declare Matthew Nyindam's seat as vacant is actually reversed. Ultimately, that did not happen. Matthew Nyindam and his lawyers had, prior to that, filed an action at the Supreme Court on a basis that the election petition was actually filed out of time, because they believe that, in fact, the law says you must file an election petition within 21 days after the gazette of the results. And they say that has not been done. And so the judge, like you mentioned, committed jurisdictional error. Because this 21-day period was not complied with, and the judge did not have a jurisdiction to hear this matter. And that's something the Supreme Court has agreed with.
And I'm quite interested in the paneling and how they ruled.
Well, a 5-member panel presided over by Justice Gabriel Scott-Poorman, Amadou Omoro Tanko, Johnny Kulendi, Samuel Kwame Adibosiedu, and Henry Kofi. It turned out to be a 4-1 judgment, because the presiding judge held a different view, but the other 4 judges all agreed with the NPP's case that they had sent to court. But Justice Gabriel Scott-Poorman disagreed. So Amadou Omoro Tanko, Johnny Kulendi, Samuel Kwame Adibosiedu, and Henry Kofi agreed with the NPP's case and quashed the judgment of the High Court. Justice Gabriel Scott-Poorman dissented. We do not have the benefit of the doubt in terms of reading the full judgment yet, because the court will publish its full ruling on the 6th of February. Then we'll get to know why Justice Gabriel Poorman dissented and why the other 4 judges ruled in favor of the New Patriotic Party. And that is what the NDC say. They are waiting to see what the ruling is, and then they will advise themselves. Listen to Roxy Nelson Dafemekpa, who says they are aggrieved by the decision of the court. They will study the decision, and ultimately, if it comes to it, will apply for a review.
The court has just given its decision in the Kwandai matter. It's to the effect that the decision of the Tamale High Court, the Commercial Division, presided by Justice Brew, I believe, be quashed by a 4-1 decision. Now, as a party, we are aggrieved by this decision, and therefore we will advise our candidate in the matter regarding the next step to take. But the court is a court of equity and of law. We should be interested in the Gazette notification published by the Assembly Press under the authority of the Electoral Commission that was brought to Parliament, for which people like me were sworn in. That cannot be a gazette that will be discounted by the court, because it's a public document. The NPP cannot benefit from that gazette notification and come to court and say that that is not the proper document. You see, the NPP, when the Tamale court gave their decision in our favor, they called the court a kangaroo court. Today, when they got the court decision in their favor, they are singing the praises of the court. But we are law-abiding. We want to urge our teaming supporters, both here and in Kwandai, to remain calm. This is not the end. This matter is not the end. The ruling of the court will be filed according to the court's own decision by the 6th of February. When we obtain the ruling, and that's the certified true copy, and we study it, we advise ourselves. There's a review option. So this matter is not ended. It's not ended. It's not ended.
Thank you very much.
We shouldn't think that it is over. The NPP shouldn't think that it is over. It is not over.
Well, you had the Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo, and I'm sure that the NPP have been responding as well.
Yes, the New Patriotic Party have been responding forcefully. Gary Nimakomafo is the director of the legal directorate of the New Patriotic Party. He led the case for Matthew Nyindam in court. He says there is absolutely nothing to review. And in fact, even if it comes to it, because we know that the review jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is triggered by adding 2 more judges. And even if those 2 judges agree with the NDC's case, this will ultimately become a 4-3 case. The NDC should give up, and Matthew Nyindam is going back to Parliament to take his seat.
That the Supreme Court has spoken emphatically that the decision of the Tamale High Court was made without jurisdiction, and so the court has quashed it, and it's hereby quashed. So Honorable Nyindam still remains the MP of the people of Pandai, so we call it still maintained. Thank you very much.
The majority in Parliament say that they would consider the option of a review. They say they disagree with the decision.
If you come to court and you have 4-1 decision, you can come for review. Review, they will add 2. Therefore, will not change their position. To be 4-3 in the likely event. So I think they should just forget about it.
I mean, there are those who say that, and in fact, they say in their press conference that you in the NPP have exhibited some hypocrisy. I mean, Roxanne Nelson, he says when the High Court in Tamale gave that judgment, you were very sad about that, and you actually used language on the judge that he did not agree with. But now you've gotten a favorable judgment, and you are singing praises in the Supreme Court.
You see, when you come to court, and a decision goes whether one way or the other, you take a legal route. What we did as a party, we took a legal route, and the court has said us. So that should be it. Thank you.
You had the Gary Nimakom, and what else came up?
Yeah, Matthew Nyindam himself has been speaking. He's excited. He's also looking forward. On Tuesday, when Parliament resumes, he's looking forward to take his seat. He's very grateful to his constituents and the New Patriotic Party, who he says have stood by him through thick and thin.
Almighty God, for what he's done in my life, and to also thank my lawyers, and also use this opportunity to thank the Supreme Court judges for the ruling, because it's clear that the people wanted to change the will of the people of Pandai, but the Supreme Court has affirmed the will of the people, and I'm most grateful to them. I also want to thank the party from the head to the bottom, that is national, regional, and the constituency, for the support they've given me. And the people of Pandai, I'm sure that when you are in Pandai today, you will see the joy of the people, because they voted for me and they expected me to serve them for the 4 years. I also want to thank His Excellency, the former Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, for the support he's given me throughout. I am most grateful. May God add several years to his current years. And I know by the will of God, he will serve this nation one day.
Well, let's get some reaction to this. We'll take you to Tamale shortly and speak to my colleague Martina Bugri. She's been engaging residents of Tamale, and especially in the Pandai constituency. But join me now is John Darkun, his legal counsel to the Minority Caucus in Parliament. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. What should we expect moving forward with regards to the procedures? Now, will Matthew Nyindam walk into Parliament and become an MP? What's the procedure?
All right, thank you very much. My dear, look, Matthew Nyindam, in our view, has always been an MP. The court pushed the decision of the High Court. In fact, Matthew Nyindam's removal was triggered by the High Court decision. And so once the High Court decision has been quashed, and in fact, the Supreme Court was very clear as they were setting aside the judgment. It said that all orders that were made by the High Court thereby quashed. And so Matthew Nyindam remains a member of Parliament, and on Tuesday he will work in as a full member of Parliament and perform his duties.
But then you just mentioned that by orders of the courts, they state that all orders by the High Court is hereby quashed. But then we know the Speaker of Parliament actually declared that seat vacant. So what happens next when it comes to the procedures in Parliament?
No, Speaker of Parliament declared a seat vacant pursuant to the High Court order. And so if the High Court order doesn't exist, then that declaration is void and doesn't exist in law. In fact, in law, you cannot build something on nothing. It will not stand. So if the decision to declare the seat vacant, okay, was based on the High Court decision, and that High Court decision has been rendered nugatory, then there's no such declaration of seat. That is why the Electoral Commission cannot in any way purport to organize any by-election. And so, in fact, to all intents and purposes, Martin Ndam remains a member of Parliament. He doesn't have to do anything. He's already been sworn in as a member of Parliament. I don't think that he has to do anything. He has to just come in, sit and take his seat. Because in law, he never lost anything. Because when this said declaration was made, that's a declaration of vacancy was made, this matter was before the Supreme Court. And that is why we were concerned that the clerk to Parliament and the parliamentary administration were in such indecent haste to declare the seat vacant. Because we have told them that, look, this matter is before the apex court of the land. So any decision that we want to make must abide the Supreme Court decision. They did not agree with us and went ahead to declare the seat vacant. But you see, the courts actually said before this judgment that, look, the Electoral Commission couldn't organize the elections because the case was pending before them. And now with this decision, everything that, came as a result of the High Court decision, okay, comes back to the status quo. And so Martin Ndam comes back to the status quo. The Electoral Commission doesn't have to organize any election. In fact, in law, the decision suggests that nothing happened. Okay, what happened before the court, Tamale, actually never happened because everything has been rendered nugatory. Everything has been set aside. The court did not have jurisdiction in the first place to hear the matter. That's why I'm surprised that my brother, the Honorable Rasim Dafiam, said that they are going to the court for a review. Really? How do you review this?
Really? Because he says once they get the court's ruling on the 6th of February, they'll go on to ask for a review. Aren't you threatened by that?
I'm sure, not at all. In fact, I know that they won't file it. They won't file it because they have some good lawyers amongst them. They know that they are just going against the tide. Look, the rules are very clear. In fact, review, it is not as of right. Review is not an appellate process. A review is to tell the court that some miscarriage will happen if the judgment is allowed to happen. A review is the effect that the judges should have taken into consideration some important statutory provision, and they did not take into consideration. The review, you are telling the court that if they don't review the decision, some major problem is going to happen in terms of our legal process, some jurisdictional error the court may have committed. Unless you're able to prove any of these things, there's no way the court will even give you the opportunity. And so first of all, you need to prove the court that you are entitled to a review before the court will actually review your decision. And I'm not sure they'll be able to meet this high threshold. It is important that when you are going before the Supreme Court, and they've said the rules very clear, okay, in a lot of decisions before the Supreme Court, to get the Supreme Court to even admit that they will review your decision, their own decision, it's a high threshold. And I don't think that they can meet that threshold. They should just admit that they've lost this one, and let's all work together to build our country.
Thank you so much, John Darko, who is legal counsel for the Minority Caucus in Parliament. We appreciate your time. Well, let's head now to the constituency that we have been talking about all morning, the Pandai constituency. My colleague Martina Bugri has been engaging residents. Let's listen to some of them.
I'm so excited because for some time, Panda hasn't had an MP. due to some misunderstanding by the MP Flagbearer for NDC, saying we have cheated. Now the law has spoken. The law says Matthew is the MP for Pandai constituency. The law has spoken.
So we don't have anything much to say. Matthew has won. Matthew has won. We thank Almighty Allah. It's a good news. You can see that very soon you come here, you will see a crowd.
Celebration, celebration. Victory,
the whole Pandai. The whole Pandai. Pandai. 20-something years.
Well, let's shift our attention now to politics, specifically the NPP primaries. Two different forces are staking their reputations on who will come out top coming Saturday. On one side, prophecy. Prophet Elbernard, speaking on Asempa FM Ekosisen, has boldly declared that Kennedy Agyapong will win the party's flag bearership race, and he's even putting his career on the line, and he's backing that prediction. On another side, we have science, where Posa Musa Dankwa says the data tells a different story. According to his analysis, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is leading the race, and he too is taking his professional credibility on the line. Well, we'll hear from both of them, but first, let's hear from Prophet Elbernard Nelson.
In that book, no, specifically what they came about Kennedy Agyapong, as a Kennedy Agyapong obey then, as far as this prime
in that book, no, one of the chapter talks about Kennedy Agyapong, the shock to the system, and the flag bearer NPP never expected. And that is chapter. Where is this now? That is chapter 6 of that book.
Okay.
Kennedy Agyapong, the shock to the system, and the flag bearer, the NPP never expected.
Oh, that's the whole message there. Obia Jenbe and the no Baba boom and Ken will come.
Ken Waba.
Hey. Waba.
Ken Waba.
And you are putting 27 years of prophetic ministry on the line.
I'm putting 27 years of hearing and seeing, 18 years of pastoring the church in Accra on the line.
If it doesn't come true, what should happen to you?
If it comes to pass, what will happen to me?
I'll tell you that in the answer me way. If it doesn't happen, what should happen to you?
When you are dealing with God, remove if.
Yeah, but you cannot remove it.
When you are dealing with God, remove if.
In the Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego can say, "Oh, in a young cotton sorry, you nimsi young coupon, but you say, why if even it doesn't come true for us."
That was a level. That was the level of relationship between Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego with God.
Yeah, but you have also a bigger relationship with God.
And so that's what I'm telling that in my dealing with God, if it's not considered,
meaning there, that's something to what. Or you one
my meeting there obi mpoche enwuma
mehu pa
so bi bekacho there onyam na meeting obejeza
the onyawo na tie no me
aha nti asna mehu pa nja na meka che ho nti I don't see why or them be consider if
Prophet.
You heard that Prophet Elbernard putting his 27-year ministry on the line, saying that indeed Kennedy Agyapong will emerge victorious in the upcoming NPP primaries. But let's now listen to Posa Musa Dankwa, who holds a different opinion.
The only thing we got wrong in the last election was 2 elections in Takoradi and Sekondi.
Okay. Takoradi and Sekondi.
And Takoradi, we knew the guy was losing. As how he won, I don't know.
Yeah, certain MP, no?
Yes. He was losing.
But for second D,
he was surprised, but we thought he was going to win.
You thought Mesa would win?
Yes, and he lost. It means among us,
and you put down the 7 years credibility our building on this.
Look.
Well, you know what it means for pollsters for a major election like this. I bet you know what it means.
Obi, there was no difficult election for me than Akwetia.
Yeah, than Akwetia.
Forget about the national election.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Why am I saying Akwetia? We only had 2 polling cycles to make predictions based on two polling cycles. The trend wasn't established. Right? Trend Ninihua. You put everything at risk.
Yeah.
We have tracked this poll for 5 good months. Obi.
In the way trend, no?
The trend is there. The trend doesn't lie. And the trend is so current. So if you trend using 1992, go forward time, and you do boy master, you have left this world and you are living in a different world. I've heard some people say, oh, people trend the noir. Master, those trends are out of date. And it was the reason why people got the last election wrong. When you have current data, ignore the historical trend. But it's telling you something now. And look, Obi, we did something we call moving average.
Okay.
1 month moving average. So when you do a poll in September, October,
yes,
you find the average between the 2 polls. No one average, no. The next month, another average. Last 2 months average, last month average.
Yes.
What moving average does is that if there is any new development happening now, you see it. So if you see normal average, it will cover certain things because it takes the whole period. Now average, so you don't see the noises in the data. But with moving average, the best packet, they ask, oh, what happened here? That's when we saw the behavior or the
in
movement.
the last week. No?
Yes. It tells you, look, because we do the tracking poll every day, we can have daily moving average.
But Musa, yes, one man who said you would put that credibility on the line as far as this election is concerned.
Yes.
And you are clear in your mind saying, no, Baumia is winning this election.
Yes.
If that doesn't happen, you know the consequence on your organization.
I know.
You know.
I know.
And you will risk it.
Now, what else would I do? What else would I do? We have done the work. We've interviewed, look, in the last month alone, we interviewed 10,000.
Yes.
In the previous month, no, at least 2,500 or 3,000. So who did come on? We have spoken to people randomly. And this is the voice of the people. And we say it's the voice of God. Obi, where is science?
Yes.
Look, anywhere else in the world, they don't fight the polls. Obi will say the polls are done credibly with the right methodology and approach. Let me say, they can be an answer.
Yes, in the same bracket.
But Global Info is different.
And indeed, we are your election headquarters. Quite interesting comments we're hearing from Musa Dankwa as well as Prophet Elbernard. Well, join me now on Zoom. I have individuals representing each member that would be vying for the position of flag-bearership coming 31st of January. I have Yao Opokomento, a spokesperson for Dr. Yawase Duchum. I have Dr. Dixon Dumako Kisi, his spokesperson for Dr. Brian Agyapong. Kwesi Kwarteng, spokesperson for Kennedy Agyapong. I will be joined shortly by a rep from Dr. Baumia's camp as well. And I also have with me Kofi Ampao, who is a member of Kwabena Agyapong's team. We appreciate your time, gentlemen, here on the polls. I'd like to start with Kwesi Kwarteng. Clearly, we're seeing a clash between prophecy and the polls. I'd like to start with the reaction of your camp on this prophecy by Prophet Elbernard, just opposing it to the pollster, Musa Dankwa, who says that Dr. Baumia is most likely to win the race.
Well, thank you very much. Let me start from this perspective. So I'll start with my personal opinion.
Okay.
Of course, at the end of the day, it also largely represents the view of our campaign. But let me state that I, as a Christian, believes in prophecy, because as a Christian, the Bible reminds us to believe in God and also believe in his prophets and believe in his word. So there is no way I will downplay the role of prophecies in edifying the church and the Christian ministry. Of course, I also, as a practical person and also as a realist, and I mean, my background, I've been a science student throughout. I also do believe in researches. Most important is that at the end of the day, these are all, especially when it comes to the research, it's just a feedback to guide you on what to do. And of course, they are all projections into the future. They are all opinions of what the interviewer did, who interviewed, they are all their opinions. But the problem that I find is when the interviewer then tries to place himself in the middle of those interviews. You see, polls are just reflections of what people think. And the expectation is that it will also reflect or manifest on the very election day. They are just feedbacks. They are not necessarily absolute, just like even prophecies. But this is what Team Ken has done. We respect the views of all these individuals, whether from the prophetic perspective, whether from the researcher's perspective. At the end of the day, our view is that if there is any other greater pool, if there is any other greater prophecy, it is the prophecy or the pool that will manifest on the election day. We believe in them, but of course, we don't bank all our hopes on them. We move beyond prophecies, we move beyond researches and go ahead to campaign. At the end of the day, even internally, we also have our own internally sponsored researches, which points to the direction that Ken has won, at least doing not less than 52 to 54%. But I mean, it doesn't make us complacent. We will still go to the delegates, engage them, and hopefully we are very confident that we'll get our votes. But I mean, let me hasten to add that even among the prophecies and even among the polls, there are even conflicting opinions. Today, this prophet will say this, the following day, other prophet will say this, same as the researchers, except to say that when it comes to Musa Dankwa, I mean, for some time, he has built that track record and credibility. But come to think of it, let's even itemize the predictions that he's made. I have had the opportunity to review 4 of them. If you recall, 2019, he had it wrong for Mahama. 2024, he had it right, very close. But you see, I've always maintained that the 2024 elections were so obvious. Unless you don't believe in the, or you're not a student of our everyday politics, you realize that it was clear that the NDC was winning the elections. But of course, it doesn't also dispute the fact that he also put in some effort. If you look at 2023, the primaries, he gave Ken 17%. Ken ended up with 37%. And the Akwatia one, he more or less like stood in the middle, where after he made his projection, he also came with an exit poll. So yes, there will be a basis for him to make his projections. But to personalize it and make it as though it's an absolute 10, that's where I find it quite problematic. But all in all, we respect their views. We commend them for their work, but I don't think they have so much absolute impact.
But then, Kwesi, you know that with Prophet Elbernard publicly endorsing Kennedy Agyapong, it must have some spiritual undertones. Now, you're on the grounds, you're doing your campaign. How is this spiritual backing, if you like, influencing the campaign strategy on the ground?
I'm not a spiritualist, so I wouldn't be able to accept and juxtapose the two. But I can speak from the physical realm. But you see, let me also hasten to add my biasness to Prophet Elbernard. I have been his church, I've been a witness of many of the prophecies that he's given that has come to pass. So naturally or ordinarily, I have every basis to trust and put my confidence in the things that he says. But as a team, we cannot sit there and say that because Prophet Elbernard has prophesied, we are going to sleep. We've told the whole country, and we are confident that we will win. We've told the whole country like 3 good times. Ken himself has done the 276 constituencies. Some of them repeated some of the constituencies. The wife, Mrs. Christian Agyapong, has also done the same. And recently, myself and together with our team, we also moved with Honorable Irene Atoshi, who also toured all the 16 regions in Ghana. So we've been selling our message, and I can confidently tell you that the party people are poised for change. They are aware of the current status of the party. They are aware that of our abysmal performance that we've never witnessed in the history of our party. and even our general politicking. And they are poised for change. They believe that even in the spirit of revival, the NPP needs a new face. And we believe that Agyapong presents that greater strength to win us power in 2020. So we are confident.
And throughout the conversation, I saw Dr. Dumaku Kisi smiling. I'm sure the Brian camp is concerned because with all the polls we're seeing and even the prophecies, it appears that your camp is not leading. Now, what would you say to this prediction from both the religious camp and even the polls?
Well, thanks for asking me these questions. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Wonderful. Let me admit that polls are very important. However, when I won my primaries in 2020, I was tipped as the person losing. And in fact, many of the NPP parliamentarians claimed that I took them by surprise because what they were hearing in the media, my name didn't come up at all. So to borrow from what is happening today, I must admit that I'm not too surprised. However, one thing is quite clear to me. The NPP delegates are quite sophisticated. And I must admit that their answering of these questions has been over and over the years. And they've grown and adapted a skill where if you're not careful as a researcher, that they would throw you off. Even we who engage them quite frequently, I must admit, sometimes your most staunch fan base or person might be the very first person to even vote against you. So in this tricky game, I'm even, first of all, wondering the kind of people doling out the questions to these very sophisticated delegates who, in one breath, when Brian comes, swear to heaven and earth that they'll vote for him, who in another breath, when Kennedy comes, does the same. So I think the Ghanaian delegate system is not one to be played with, and certainly not one that can be a surety in terms of the sciences. If you apply the same polling system to the British person is highly likely to admit that, yes, I'm voting for this person, and that person would vote based on conscience and everything the same way they say they would. But with the Ghanaian delegate, trust you me, they are a bit sophisticated, that's the appropriate word to use, and invariably, on the D-Day, when they wake up, and per the engagements they get from the various aspirants, anything can change within the space of about 3 hours. And let me also add that with the prophecy angle, in 2016, 2020, 2024, if we followed just prophecy, certainly Mahama would not be president in 2025 or 2026. So prophecy, as we all know, has its usefulness, and I'm taken aback by a religious man who is so certain in his mind. I think that in all fairness and honesty, based on my small experience with religion, you may proffer that this is what you've heard, this is what may happen. But to be 100% certain, I think begs the question, because there are many human elements within the frame of all of this. And as it is, we all know, even within the sports dynamics, that players might be very sure of a 2-0 win, only to then go on the pitch and the person to score gets a red card. So all kinds of things can happen. But in all of this, I like the fact that I think that we must admit the likes of Hillary Clinton was winning in the polls only for Donald Trump to come out victorious. So polling, as we can admit, drives you to work much harder. And we think that in one way or the other, it's woken us up to encourage us within the Brian Agyapong team to work even harder.
But then, if you allow me coming at this point, Dr. Dixon, is this affecting your base in any way? The prediction from the scientists and even the spiritual realm as well. Is it affecting your base? You're on the ground, you're engaging your base.
I must admit that, there are some delegates who have allegiance, let me say, to the spiritual and may be swayed. However, delegates, in all fairness, on the D-Day might throw away religion, tribe, and everything, and then look at how well you talk to them and take a political decision based on all kinds of things. And I'm not here to necessarily talk about all kinds of things that can happen. In fact, up to when the person throws in their ballot, you cannot be very certain, regardless of even whatever inducement you may use. So in all of this, we will approach this election with a lot of caution. That, however, even still a good chunk of people who are undecided, and they might, as it is, be the swing to the pendulum for whoever comes out victorious. And I think that this comes down to our key messaging. And in fact, for even Dr. Brennan Champong, quite frankly, to be as it is, the new entrant to now be considered one of the top three, I must admit that over the 4 months, we've done so well. And to even swing some people who are within the Kennedy or Vice President's arena to come into the undecided fray is very, very, very important and quite significant for even the likes of Kennedy to be wary, in the sense that some people who stood with Kennedy have moved from, strong green with Kennedy into the undecided zone. And then likewise, those on the Baumia end have also moved into the undecided zone. And in all of that, those can be very tricky. And each candidate needs a 50 plus to, decide this race. And if it moves into, as it is, a situation where the undecided move us into all three candidates getting less than 50%, then the game changes. And then we must consider that second round situation and who will do business with who. And these are all things on the table as we move along in taking our decisions. Yeah.
Okay, stay with me because I'll come back to all the gentlemen joining us to just find out how the last batch of campaign is ongoing on the ground. But let me also bring in Kofi Ampao, who's member of Kwabena Agyapong's team. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. I'm sure you've heard the different prediction from prophets and even pollsters. It appears your performance is not looking too well. How do you plan to turn your fortunes around? But I'll start with your reaction to all that we've seen so far. You have to unmute for us to hear you clearly. Okay, whilst we wait for Kofi to position rightly, unmute, and then we can hear him. I know that I have with me Agyapong Mensah. He is from Dr. Yawo Seidichum's camp. He also joins the conversation. So I'll come back to you, Kofi, whilst you work on your internet connection for us to hear you clearly. But then I'm sure, Dr. Yawo Seidichum, are you worried about the different polls and prophecies that put your competitors ahead of you?
Not at all. Let me say a good afternoon to my colleagues on the line and to our lovely viewers. We are not enthused. We are not astonished in any way with regards to prophecies and polls, etc., which fly in, and it's duly expected, especially at this time. And again, what you need to appreciate is that this is politics. And whatever candidate you want to do to bring their name up for the citizens to know that they are indeed part of the whole process is very important in political communication. And therefore, once some of these polls and prophecy comes, you need to understand that these are means of working on the psyche of the electorates. But one thing that we must not be oblivious of has got to do with, in all dealings, the outlook aspect of the party's image, that is the reputation. And therefore, you ask yourself, of what purpose will these prophecies and polls inure to the benefit of the entire process? It may be a strategy. It depends on what you are looking out for. Some, for example, within our camp, will want to rely solely on our internal mechanism to know the strength of our candidates and the strategy to adapt moving forward. We do that with the fact that we also need to keep to the values of the party, and therefore we need to acknowledge this is an internal contest that wouldn't require the drama that it deserves. But once we've seen all this, this do not in any way affect the mechanisms in which we've adapted in executing this whole electoral process. The candidate, my candidate, currently as we speak, is in the Western North, still engaging. We rest not until the final bell is sounded and the Electoral Commissioner declaring Dr. Yossi Aduchum as the flag bearer.
But you must be worried, yeah. You must be worried, especially because spiritually and physically, your candidate is not even among the top 3.
That's your thinking.
So what's your strategy?
That's their thinking. The strategy, we keep our strategy to our chest. And then we wouldn't want to be part of, as people describe it, pressing the destructive elements for media attention and some kind of attention by the general public to ensure that we still do have our feet in this whole process. The process has got to do with your tailored message to the delegates, how you're engaging them, what you stand for. And basically, when delegates can assess all these 5 individuals, their public service to the country and to the party, and their contribution as a whole to the government that exited just recently. I am a believer. I cannot challenge what other people have seen with regard to their communication with God. But at least as a Methodist, me reading my Methodist hymn book, MHB 989, it tells me that once in every man and nation comes the moment to decide of what decision are we looking at. And it admonishes us to strive the difference between darkness and light. And therefore, the darkness and the light has got to do with what the individual's philosophy, their belief as to how the nation's transformation agenda should be, how they've carried themselves out to the delegates, how are they keeping the values of the party in which we so cherish and we want to lead, how are they treating this whole thing. That all these will come to play, and delegates are not just swayed by a certain mere of a mention of a prophecy or a certain post conducted by somebody somewhere. But the most important thing is that at the end of the day, the final decision, the real polls, or the prophecies which are all over will be tested on 31st. And that is what is important. That is why our strategy is to stick to what our internal mechanisms tells us, what kind of engagement do the delegates require. And when we go down there, the delegates are able to attest the kind of leadership that Dr. Yossi Aduchum has exhibited in this whole campaign process ever since he declared his intention to contest. And they are also able to attest the kind of leadership that Dr. Yossi Aduchum offered this country when he was at the Education Ministry, his affableness, his humbleness, and his appealing spirit of uniting the other factions.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not your campaign ground. So I have to come in at this point in time. And let me bring in Kofi Dochi Ampao. He's member of Agyapong's team. I appreciate your time here on the Pulse. Where are you right now as we speak when it comes to your campaign on the ground? Looking at the different polls, not even putting your candidate as the top 4 contender. And now even with the spiritual realm, we're not hearing any prophecy about your candidate. You must be worried, are you not?
I'm wondering why you determined top 3, the top 4, no, that.
Oh dear. It appears that Kofi's connection is not favorable. Unfortunately, we'll have to fix that, probably call him via phone lines because the Zoom is not working. But let me come back to our candidates. Kwesi Kwarteng is still with us. You are on the ground. We know that the official date for the election is just days away, barely 72 hours. What is the mood on the ground and where are you as we speak? Have you wrapped up your campaign?
Oh, we did. You know, Ken did wrap up his campaign in his own constituency. Natoshi also wrapped up the campaign at the Dominic Kwabena in Greater Accra here. Ken's wife, Madam Christiana Agyapong, has also wrapped up her campaign. What is left now is just the preparation towards the D-Day operations. You know, there's also a lot that goes into it. Some that can be shared on TV, some that cannot be shared on TV. Because a lot of them are matters of strategy and they are unable to just place it on the public space like that. But I can tell you that for Team Ken, we are prepared and ready and winning. And so far as we are concerned, we are just waiting for the D-Day and of course still counting on delegates, appealing once again to them. Finally, I'm told per the guidelines, the last day of election is supposed to be tomorrow, Thursday. That's what the guidelines stipulate. We are done, but of course, any opportunity that we'll get, just to remind them to vote for change, vote for a candidate that inspires hope, vote for a candidate that is credible and also accepted. You know, I've always maintained that marketability is not necessarily just about visibility, but somebody who has a proven track record to be accepted and trusted by the Ghanaian people. So we are confident that hopefully 31st Ken will come out victorious. And most importantly, will come and unite the party with my good friend from Kwewu, Dr. Agyapong, and Dr. Baumia, and my former boss, Dr. Sendichu. My regards to Dr. Agyapong through Dr. Adumagu Kisi. That's the kind of more chamunya be why. Don't make it say to say, Bam, it's fine. All right, thank you.
Okay, let me wrap up with Dr. Kisi. You are smiling. Clearly, your final words. I'm sure you've wrapped up your campaign, have you?
We're currently in the Ashanti region. That's our second round in the Ashanti region.
Okay.
And we're campaigning till the end. I think that, let me add that all the campaigners have been a good sport. And my hat goes off for all of them. And it's been largely decent. Granted, we've had a few punches here and there. But overall, I think we're praying for a peaceful election. And we're praying that all goes well. Transparency and acceptability of the election results. Our candidate has said that when he should lose, he would lose gracefully. And that whoever wins, we are all ready to support in fullness. And we are hopeful that the delegates will consider him as the one that can bring all of us together and hoping that our last engagement will yield some fruits and that Dr. Agyapong strategically will come out victorious. Unforeseeable, and some things are like that in life. And I would like to have dinner with, the very spiritual man, Elbernard, when we've won, and we'll see how it goes. So these are my last few words.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dixon. Let me, before I come to Opoku Mensah, let's try one more time if we can get a clear connection to Kofi Ampao. I'm told this time he's joining us via phone. I would like to start with your reaction to the prophecies and even the polls that put other candidates as forerunners, but your candidate is nowhere to be found.
That's quite interesting. Ever since we started the campaign, we have never heard our name mentioned among the top money spenders. In fact, this whole campaign has been classified as those with money versus those who didn't have money. So if we are not counted among the top three, we don't have a problem. We know the work that we have done on the ground. We know the work we are continuing to do. Kwabena, as I speak to you, is in the Ashanti region. He's still delegates, he's talking to them. We are doing all the necessary to be done ahead Saturday. So yeah, we respect the purpose of our reverend.
Kofi, you have to position rightly. I'm losing you intermittently.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear now.
Okay. We respect the prophecy by the man of God. Kwabena is a dedicated member of the Methodist Church. He's a very, very proud and dedicated member. We believe strongly that the message that we have, we prayed about it before we go out to delegate. We believe that God has heard our message and God reward us accordingly. With regards to poll numbers and all of that, Musa Dampa's polling and all of those things, we are yet to see. We are yet to see. All the polls so far have been based on these so-called monetary calculations. It's all been based on the big spenders in the elections as this.
But why is your candidate not a big spender? If you want something, you should be willing to spend.
Oh, we are doing what we have to do. We are doing what we have to do. We are spending money, but we are not spending money compared to others. Others are maybe bigger spenders than us, but we are doing what we have to do.
Are you alleging that even before the election day, there's already undertones of vote buying within the party based on your checks? Is that the case?
Alleged undertones of vote buying. If I see vote buying, I'll say it. I will not come and make allegations.
Okay.
I haven't seen evidence of vote buying, so I wouldn't make an allegation to that effect. But if I see it, I will say it.
And so finally, I'm sure you are still on the grounds. When will you be wrapping up your tour? And what's the mood like on the grounds?
We'll be wrapping up our tour, God willing. By Thursday morning, we should be wrapping up. And then we'll come back to Accra, organize and consolidate what we have done. We believe strongly. We are talking to delegates. Our headquarters is also in communications with all the various delegates on the grounds where we've gotten to. We are quite confident that we have a good message. Our message is resonating with the delegates. And so those of you who are saying it's going a certain way, I'm very sorry. Saturday, you should be expecting a surprise on Saturday.
What surprise is that? And what is even your message? Because we're yet to see active campaigning, especially here in the Greater Accra region.
Oh, really? I'm surprised. If Joy FM is saying that you don't even know our campaign message and you haven't followed our campaign, then you haven't done your job.
Apart from your news conference, we haven't seen anything else in the Greater Accra region. And so, which areas have you visited? Tell me.
We have met. Are you aware that Agyapong has met with every constituency in the Greater Accra region?
Apart from the Greater Accra region, which other region have you visited?
We've met constituencies in every region in this country, my dear. We've gone everywhere in Ghana. We don't make noise. It is not about noise. It is not about showing off monetary and all of that. It's about telling delegates, party members, substantive issues that they want to hear. And on Saturday, it is a substance that will come out on Saturday. Not the rabble-rousing, noise-making, money-throwing show. No. We are not doing that. We are substance campaigning. We are talking to delegates. The delegates have heard us. They know Kwabena's track record. They have a track record that they can compare his message with. And they are seeing everything that has happened. And so Saturday, NPP is going to vote for its destiny. And I don't think it's a destiny that is going to be defined by money. No way. The new patriotic party on Saturday will speak. We will speak loudly as the elephant should. We will elect our flag bearer. Whoever is elected will all rally behind that flag bearer. But we believe strongly that on that day, it will be Engineer Kwabena Agyapong who will be elected.
Thank you, Kofi Ampao. He speaks for Kwabena Agyapong. Let me wrap up with Yao Poku. Finally, your final preparations. We know that the election is happening this Saturday. Are you done with your campaigning?
We rest not until the crown is obtained. Currently, as I indicated, my candidate is actively in the Western North region. Tomorrow, we will be in the Greater Accra region, but as per the dictates of the rules of engagement, campaigning ends on Thursday. So we will continue with all our engagement tomorrow. And then again on Friday, as the guidelines stipulate, we will rest on the campaign and do our strategy with the operational works, etc. But what is important, as I indicated to you, is the decision that the delegates will make on Saturday. And they've really affirmed that they are looking for a proven reformer, a generational thinker, and a destiny changer, and somebody who has earned the trust and the confidence of the people with a clearer demonstration of a unifying factor. And that rests on the shoulders of Dr. Yossi Aduchum. This is a verdict for the delegate themselves, what I've witnessed in Greater Accra region. And just recently in Ashiaman, I witnessed him in Domekwabenya, which gives a clearer and a bold decision and a direction by the rank and file of the party that it is the time to make Dr. Yossi Aduchum the flag bearer of the NPP, so that we can be able to win 2028 elections with the support of Ghanaians and the NPP rallying support or unite towards that victory. And that can only be assured, or we can only get that through the leadership of Dr. Yao Osiaduchum. That is what we are looking up to on 31st of January.
Thank you so much, Yao Opoku-Mensah. He speaks for Dr. Yao Osiaduchum, and we are your election headquarters. Be rest assured that on the 31st of January, we are on the ground, giving you full coverage of the NPP primaries. Now, you're still watching the polls. When we return, the GJA has issued a 14-day ultimatum to the fire service to release investigations into findings on the assault on Class FM journalists or risk being blacklisted. We'll give you details of that after this quick turn.
We are giving the fire service a 14-day ultimatum to act on this request.
Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. So other stories now. The Ghana Journalists Association has this afternoon issued a strong warning to the Ghana National Fire Service to make public within 14 days the investigative findings that led to the interdiction of officers involved in the attack on a Class FM journalist in the central region. Failure to comply, the association says, will attract a media blacklist and possible civil legal action. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, president of the association, Albert Kwabnadumfo, said attacks on journalists are becoming habitual and require immediate and firm action.
GJA's demands. In light of the foregoing, the Ghana Journalists Association demands the following. 1. A public release of the investigation findings and sanctions by the Ghana National Fire Service. A public release of the investigation findings and sanctions by the Ghana National Fire Service. We are giving the fire service a 14 days ultimatum. We are giving the fire service a 14-day ultimatum to act on this request. Failing which will take drastic measures against them, including and not limited to blacklisting. Failing which will take drastic measures against them, including and not limited to blacklisting. The immediate release of the PRO of the Ghana National Fire Service. This cannot be compromised. We can't work with him. Failure to do so, the GJA will have to take a position and advise our members and all media practitioners in the country as such on our position. So within these 14 days, we expect them to do this 2 things. Or reassign him, we don't care. Should remove him from there. We cannot deal with him. And let me also add that we are not only leaving the issue for criminal investigation alone or for the internal sanctions alone. we have taken bold steps. As we speak now, our lawyers are busily preparing summons to take civil action against the perpetrators of this erroneous attack, of this barbaric attack, which occurred in Kaswa.
He also called for an immediate investigation into the alleged attack on TV3 reporter in the Northeast region, describing the incident as unfortunate and unjustified.
Colleagues, another disturbing report we have received was an unprovoked assault by military personnel on a journalist in Waliwali in the Northeast region. The victim, Mr. Samuel Kwame Kanalue, a Northeast regional correspondent of Media General, and the secretary of the GJA Northeast region, was assaulted on Sunday, January 26, 2026, at about 3 p.m. while lawfully going about his private and professional life in Waliwali. According to the report submitted to the GJA, Mr. Kanlue had parked his motorcycle near a roadside store in town to purchase basic supplies when he was approached by a group of military personnel who were already present in the area. Without provocation, the soldiers questioned the ownership of his motorcycle, and before he could adequately respond, subjected him to a physical assault. Two of the military personnel allegedly beat the journalist on the back with sticks and canes approximately 4 times, claiming that he had parked at an unauthorized location. Even after Kanalue identified himself as a journalist, the assault reportedly continued, with the soldiers stating that they did not care about his profession. And mind you, he was in the attire of Umia TV, Umia FM, the t-shirt of his media house. And that must be put on record. He was detained for a while and released after his phone was seized and some pictures and messages deleted from the phone. In fact, they recycled the phone or reset, how did they call it? They flashed the phone. They flashed the phone so that he wouldn't get any information or data on the phone. So if the military was doing something right, was lawfully exercising their powers, why would they seize his phone after subjecting him to inhuman attack? Seize his phone, flash his phone, so he wouldn't get any information. And even messages that were sent earlier to people on that day were all deleted before the phone was recycled. This is how inhuman some people can be.
Well, the GJA president further stated that the association has petitioned the IGP of police to take action against individuals threatening journalists covering the Boko situation, including Albert Sori, on social media.
So threats against journalists in the Upper East region, Boko conflict. Boko as a warning zone for press safety. The Ghana Journalists Association is gravely alarmed by death threats, incitement to violence, and imminent attacks against journalists in the Upper East region. Particularly the Upper East Regional Chairman of the GJA, Mr. Albert Sori, in connection with their professional coverage of the protracted Boko conflict. The association considers these threats reckless, criminal, and deeply dangerous, not only to the lives of journalists, but also to public order and national security. Journalists covering the Boko conflict have been openly labeled enemies, subjected to coordinated online abuse, and threatened with death through social media posts, voice notes, and other forms of digital incitement. This deliberate targeting of journalists has created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation that could easily escalate into mob violence if not urgently addressed. The GJA has received a detailed incident report from Mr. Albert Sori, outlining how a professional journalistic engagement was maliciously distorted and weaponized by faceless and pseudonymous actors to incite hostility and issue explicit death threats against him and other journalists. Similar threats have previously been directed at other media practitioners covering the Boko conflict, pointing to a disturbing and real.
Let's head now to the Bono and Ahafo regions. Well, every morning in Ghana's Bono and Ahafo regions, thick smoke rises from thousands of kitchens quietly filling homes, markets and lungs. Women cook over firewood and charcoal, not because they want to, but because they have no other choice. The smoke makes their eyes hurt, their chests burn and their children cough. Yet, just a short distance away, piles of sawdust, crop waste and food scraps are burnt or dumped as rubbish. Experts say this ignored waste could clean cooking, protect forests and save lives. Here's Precious Semevo with a report on how Ghana is turning daily trash into solutions.
At a small cooking spot in Viankwanta Zongo in Ghana's Ahafo region, the promise of clean energy feels far away. For 65-year-old Kenkesela Hawa Mumuni, this fire is survival. I have used it for a long time, and we can put it out after use. That is why I am stuck with the firewood. I use this metal cooking pot, and when I am done, I add the hot water. Not far away, porridge vendor Zalia to Isaka prepares for the morning rush. Firewood, she says, is cheap, fast and always reliable. The firewood is fast and easily accessible. Either we cut it here or firewood sellers bring it in a motor tricycle. These women are the human face of Ghana's clean energy transition, one they say is passing them by. Ghana wants to fight climate change by expanding renewable energy. Government plans aim to increase renewable energy in the national energy mix from about 2% to 10% by 2030. National data from the Ghana Statistical Service shows that only 23% of households use clean cooking fuels. About 77% still depend on firewood, charcoal or other solid fuels. Abudu Isifu is the assembly member for Viankwanta Zongo electoral area.
Because our area is located near the forest areas, we normally use firewood as our source of energy. And after the firewood, we go to charcoal. So it's basically firewood and charcoal that we normally use.
Health workers say the cost is being paid with lives. Iva Ayi is the district director of health for Tano North Municipality.
If we have the NGOs that will come in to give them the necessary support so that at least our women or whoever, there will be a cut down on exposure to the smoke. You are exposed to a whole lot of respiratory tract infections, and with these, if not treated, it will progress into some of the cancers with looking at the lung cancers, the breast cancers, and the rest.
Daniel Ousukoko is the environmental officer for Sunyani Municipal.
In our society, you will say that poverty is one of the reasons why they continue using firewood. They cannot afford it. And so though we don't like it, but gradually we will reach there.
Women here say the barriers are clear. Clean fuels are costly or unavailable. Electricity and solar systems are beyond their reach. Many have never received education on LPG safety or improved cook stoves. Amin Ali Adams is a resident.
Me who say I say communities na rural communities no. You say government no mo twa yabo. behind because
I think the government has left rural communities behind because urban dwellers often enjoy a greater share of clean energy, unlike us. But we are all Ghanaians, so we plead with the government to help us access renewable energy. My problem is the health implications of firewood usage on our women. The government has rolled out programs like the Rural LPG Promotion Program, which provides subsidized cylinders and stoves. But communities like Duankwanta say they have seen little impact. For women like Hawa and Zalia too, clean energy remains a distant promise. Each day, smoke fills their kitchens. It affects their health, pollutes the air, and deepens energy poverty. Precious Semevo, Duankwanta.
This story is brought to you by JoyNews in partnership with CDKN Ghana, University of Ghana Center for Climate Change and Sustainability Studies, with funding from Claire R4I Opportunities Fund.
Well, the EPA Takwa Regional Office is hosting a crucial meeting between EPA management, led by its Chief Executive, Professor Nanama Brown-Kluche, and the leadership of dozens of miners who have been summoned over their suspected involvement in the illegal processing of gold through leaching. Leaching is a method of extracting metals like gold by soaking crushed rock in a chemical solution which dissolves the metal so it can later be collected from the liquid. Although illegal under Ghana's environmental and mining regulations when conducted without proper authorization, the practice is rapidly gaining popularity and poses serious health risk. Listen to the EPA Chief Executive explaining the hazards this method creates for the environment.
Currently at Takwa, we visited a number of mining operators who use a method called vat leaching. Here, the typical one they use is a column type of mine. So it's like a dam where they mix the raw material with some chemicals and water. So the chemical they use here is cyanide. In that process, we know that cyanide is dangerous for the environment and for people. And so we discovered this last year, knowing that a lot of them are in the system. So EPA has sat down to come up with some guidelines to help us to regulate them. It's, as we speak, illegal. This is a mining practice that is not allowed in Ghana. But EPA, from last year, from our monitoring, we realized that it's so widespread in the country that banning will even be a problem for us because it's so widespread and very difficult to control them. So what we have decided to do, we have engaged they have an association, we have engaged the association leadership and explained to them that EPA will be regulating their activity to make sure that they do minimum impact on the environment through their process. So from today, we have agreed that EPA will be regulating them. They are going to pay permits for processing. We are going for processing of the materials that they use to, or they get their gold from, their waste, how they deposit their waste, and all of those processes, how they should even line the columns that they use for their processing, and all of that will be regulated by EPA. This will ensure that minimal impact is done to the environment.
Away from that, government has revealed plans to, among other measures, regulate hostel accommodation across the country as it continues a review of the Rent Control Act and Rent Control Law. Speaking at the Government Accountability Series at the Jubilee House, Works and Housing Minister Gilbert Ajay said a national rent dialogue was held during the review process to validate and streamline the proposed amendments. He added that the ministry is taking steps to resubmit the bill to Cabinet and subsequently Parliament for consideration and approval.
Review of rent laws. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, recognizing the critical role of rental housing in national development, my ministry continued the review of the Rent Act 1963, Act 220, and the Rent Control Law 1986, PNDC Law 138. These reforms aim to modernize outdated legislation, eliminate regulatory bottlenecks, and incentivize private sector investment into rental housing. Key priorities include maintaining tenant protections, especially for low-income and vulnerable groups, while also regulating hostel accommodations fees across the country. Towards the end of the year 2025, the National Rent Dialogue was organized to validate and streamline the proposed amendments. The ministry taking the necessary steps to resubmit the revised bill to Cabinet and subsequently Parliament for consideration and approval.
Well, the minister also says government will scale up the operations of the National Rental Assistance Scheme across all 16 regions.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the National Rental Assistance Scheme, established by the government in 2023 as a social housing program, aims to facilitate access to rental properties for qualifying beneficiaries by providing rent advance. The scheme is currently being piloted in 6 regions, namely Greater Accra, Bono East, Northern, Eastern, Western, and Ashanti regions. In 2025, the scheme successfully facilitated the payment of rent advance for 2,031 Ghanaians across its 6 operational regions, bringing the cumulative number of beneficiaries since inception to 4,732. I am glad to state that so far, the disbursement recovery rate is about 99%, indicating the government seed money is fully recoverable and in circulation. The program's eligibility criteria, application process, and beneficiary success stories highlight its effectiveness in addressing housing needs and enhancing community well-being, and government is poised to take the necessary steps in the short to medium term to scale up the operations of the scheme across all 16 regions of the country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my ministry has intensified engagement with the selected developer for the completion of the Sagleme Affordable Housing Project. Following the completion of the developer selection process led by Deloitte Ghana, the head of terms have been duly signed by both parties. The joint venture arrangement concluded among all parties as well as the shareholders' agreement drafted and mutually agreed upon. The document is currently with the Attorney General for review and finalization. Similarly, the State Housing Company Limited continued works on key projects, including the Surge Homes development at Amrahia, the SHC Gardens project. Both projects are currently at 68% and 70% completed, respectively. My ministry has continued its efforts to complete the stalled affordable housing projects across the country. TDC Ghana Limited has continued works on 800 housing units under the Pong Affordable Housing Project at Tema Community 26. These units are at various stages of completion and progressing steadily. To position TDC Ghana Limited as a key player in Ghana's housing industry, the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, performed the sword-cutting ceremony last year for the construction of the Oxygen City housing projects at Ho in the Volta region. This landmark initiative seeks to address Ghana's housing deficit through the development of 1,000 affordable housing units. This project is the first by TDC Ghana Limited outside the Tema acquisition area. The Oxygen City housing project which will be housed on approximately 1,000 acres of land, is envisioned as a well-planned, serviced, and economically integrated community, featuring essential amenities such as a school, hospital, shopping mall, gym, and a recreational center.
Well, that's how I wrap up the pulse. I appreciate your time and your company. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. Some top stories there. NDC can seek review of Pandai verdict, but success is rare, and that's coming from Martin Pebo. You can go on myjoyonline.com to read that story and many more on myjoyonline.com. And just before we leave you, Rehoboth Havens at Ayimensa is asking you to make ownership simple for yourself this year. They say they have available homes for Ghanaians and the diaspora, and it's going for as low as 675,000 Ghana cedis. Rehoboth Havens is a secure gated community featuring beautifully landscaped surroundings, a recreational center, and the comfort of safety. Now you can pay 30%, you can move in, and they spread the balance over the next 5 years. And their numbers we will be putting out for you so that you can call them and also book an appointment. The numbers are 0244764449. You can also call 0553-751-933 and also 020-682-3524. Or you can visit all their social media handles at Rehoboth, and they will be sure to address all your housing needs. And that's how I wrap up the pulse. I appreciate your time and company. My name is Faustina Safo. Good afternoon and have a pleasant day as you enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.